Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be looking at the Saturn-Uranus sextile, and I'm going to be breaking this down for the 12 signs as well. And it would be much appreciated if you signed up to my YouTube channel, to subscribe, like the video, and so forth. Let's build this awesome community. And of course, if you don't want to miss any update, then your place is here because there are tons of videos coming your way, all about updates, what is happening astrologically in the sky, in the world, and on a personal level as well. Now, and talking about Saturn, I've got an upcoming course coming up 4th of May, and it will be all about Saturn. We are going to be honoring Saturn. We are going to be reframing Saturn. And we're going to be looking at the good and the bad side of Saturn as well through aspects, houses, signs, and the meanings of Saturns. So if you are interested, check that out on my website. But now let's get going with this aspect, how it affects you individually as well as on a global level. First up is that we might want to understand when it comes to Saturn and Uranus, they are kind of like in a cosmic motion. So they are forming a conjunction, and then until the next conjunction, that cycle is actually highly important. So the present Saturn-Uranus cycle started in 1988 February, and then we had a square going on between them two in 1999, and then we had an opposition around 2008 to 2011. And then we had a square again between them two in 2021 February. And then now we are reaching this sextile, which is actually a closing sextile. So it means that pretty much Saturn is pulling up towards Uranus. And then they are kind of like ready at one point to make a conjunction. By the way, the conjunction happens between them two approximately every 45 years. So that is a little bit of a knowledge that we might want to be kind of like understanding. Today, I don't want to bother you with history and so forth, but it's worth having a look at those just because you might see where we are going with certain type of like phases of the two planets. So we had the collapse of Soviet Union, we had financial deregulations, a big bang went on, and then, oh, well, not to mention, that China kind of came into the picture and so forth. So there has been a lot going on with Saturn and Uranus cycles. Now, when it comes to this particular cycle, this is pretty much of a 15-month type of cycle, actually. They have been kind of in orb since since January 2025, and then they are going to be within orb until about April 2026. And there will be three exact sextiles happening between them too. So we've got the very first one about to happen on the 4th of April 2025. And then we are going to be having one in August 11th, 2025. And then we're going to have one January 19th, 2026. But let's break this down. Let's have a look at how it looks like. First of all, because it's a sextile, it indicates that the two planets might be working together. Saturn in Pisces is all about the structure and the discipline, but with a bit of a dreamy kind of spiritual vibe. It's kind of like working towards to create a union. And then when it comes to Uranus in Taurus, it's all about shaking things up, especially when it comes to our values and resources. So this sextile could bring about some really innovative or practical changes in how we handle our spiritual lives or even the material world. And Saturn in Pisces can represent the lessons and the structures we have inherited, especially around spirituality and how we connect with something bigger than ourselves. And Uranus wants to break free from old patterns and finding new ways to ground ourselves or to build a more secure future. So this sextile might be giving a lot of us the opportunity to find a balance between honoring the past, but also embracing the change, but in a very practical way, though. And Saturn and Uranus are really opposing forces. Saturn is all about playing safe, sticking to something what's been tested and tried out, while Uranus is all about shaking things up and breaking free from the norm. So we're gonna have to find a balance between these two as well. Respecting the wisdom of elders, for example, or respecting the wisdom of the past. But we have to be remaining open to new possibilities as well. And Saturn and Uranus have a really long history together, and their interactions, have been linked to some pretty significant events. So when we had the conjunction, 1988, February, early 90s, it came with the fall of the Berlin Wall. And Saturn is the wall, and Uranus acts like a thunderbolt. But also, that was the end of the Cold War as well. And then the current Saturn Uranus square in 2021, well, it did bring major social and political upheavals as well. So, there were widespread protests in 2021, movements advocating for social justice and equality, kind of like it's like the Black Lives Matters type of scenario. And we also saw this increased political polarization and instability in many countries. Just think of the January 6th Capitol riots in the US. It was a time of questioning established structures and basically demanding change. So, from that perspective, even the sextile can be very interesting in 2025 because it could bring major social and political upheavals anyway. And Saturn does rule politics. And I would say that it is going to be bringing a mix of stability and innovation. It might be bringing some interesting developments in how governments operate, for example. There could be a lot of push for more efficient or practical solutions to societal questions. And Uranus is surely asking a lot of us to be willing to try new things out, to have new approaches. It's the time when the old system is getting challenged, but surely moving forward towards something progressive. But because the two planets are communicating, we have to be striking a balance out there. And with Uranus in Taurus, we see shakeups in the financial world as well. So think about like the rise of the cryptocurrencies or digital banking, or even new ways of investing and trading. Um, we might see some very interesting developments, in the world of cryptocurrency. I can even imagine that new digital currencies popping up, or I can imagine that the artificial intelligence, of course, is going to be playing a significant role in how we manage our money and finances. And I would say that because Saturn is the representation of governments, governments might want to regulate AI to make sure that it's used responsibly and ethically. And on the other hand, there is the risk that too much regulation could, you know, like hold down or hold back the progress. So it's not easy. So therefore, this is the reason why often Uranus is, for example, becomes rebellious because it doesn't agree with the rules of Saturn. And because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, which is about dreams, intuition, the unseen, When we think about AI, it could be about exploring the ethical or the philosophical questions it raises. Maybe even looking at how AI can help us connect with each other on a deeper level. And Taurus is all about, with Uranus being there, it could actually indicate that, for example, they are going to be working towards making cryptocurrency as a legal tender. Saturn can sometimes create blocks. And in Pisces, it might be about suppressing our subconscious or intuitive insights. But Uranus is all about breaking free from these limitations. So maybe it is prompting us to find the courage to embrace our unique perspective and sometimes to go against the grain. With Uranus shaking things up, we might see some major breakthroughs in medical technology, maybe even new approaches to treating illnesses. Even it can bring changes in how pharmaceutical companies operate with a focus on more innovative or sustainable practices. And wherever Saturn is, that could represent, for example, sense of lack. So in the context of Pisces, which might represent the lack of hospitals, the lack of pharmaceutical companies, we might see shortages of hospital workers or facilities or resources. But with Uranus in the picture, there is a potential for innovation or finding unexpected solutions to these problems. So, of course, introducing robots or these type of things could be something that might help with those shortages. And maybe we see how the medical services are delivered to people are going to be changing. So maybe this is going to be like a shift towards decentralized models, let's say with smaller clinics or even specialization in, this clinic is specializing in that one and so forth. Or even we might see the home-based care becoming more common. So privatization of hospitals, I can really imagine happening. Maybe private companies taking over certain aspects of the healthcare. So such thing I can imagine with that. But also with Uranus, this is all about embracing our individuality, our identity, and breaking free from the norm. So we might see rise in personalized medicines, where treatments are tailored to your individual needs. And also because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, there could be a focus on alternative therapies and holistic approaches. Like imagine we are talking about acupuncture or herbal remedies or energy healing. These might become more of a mainstream. And definitely because Taurus can represent the body. It really feels like at least the strength of the body. So it really feels like that we are using innovative ways to take care of our body as well as our minds. And then Taurus is also about self-love and our how we value ourselves. So with Uranus being in the mix, we might see some new and unconventional approaches to self-care. Maybe we just simply decide to kind of break free from traditional beauty standards. We might see that, there's going to be a shift. I don't know, now the chubby is going to be a trend, just as an example, because Uranus represents trends anyway. Maybe we might even see a real shift in what's considered beautiful, with more focus on celebrating diverse body types or embracing natural beauty, because Taurus represents natural beauty. Or we might see that fashion could become more inclusive, maybe with a wider range of styles or sizes being represented on the catwalks. I can imagine such stuff. So again, breaking free from the old. You know, Saturn is kind of like the restrictive standards, and Uranus just would like to kind of open up the ways to welcome a little bit more people into it. And then with Pisces, I always talk a lot about modern slavery, which I think is a huge problem. And I think it needs to be addressed anyway. So maybe with that Uranus innovative energy, we might see new and creative approaches to fighting it. Maybe we will see technology or social movements that help raise awareness about this issue. Maybe we are going to be seeing some religious or spiritual movements also. So, of course, because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, which is trying to block out religious matters, and then Uranus is kind of like rebellious about it. But I heard recently that praying in one of these European countries, praying in the air, in the open, is actually forbidden. You cannot kind of do that. So this is really interesting. And surely when we have got Saturn in the sign of Pisces connecting to Uranus, we start questioning the traditional beliefs and we start exploring new ways of connecting something bigger than ourselves. And I also can imagine there will be restrictions on movements. So maybe these protests are somehow not necessarily allowed. This happened recently in Turkey. So I wouldn't be necessarily shocked about that. Even it happened in Hungary as well, just in the last couple of days. And maybe because this is about trying to push away of the celebration of your uniqueness. So in one of the countries, the LGBTQ and plus group got targeted, for example. And in the other one, well, it was more political, but let's not get into the scenarios, right? So somehow the restriction of social gatherings could be a topic with that also. And the reason why I mentioned prayers, because Pisces represents prayers, and prayers can be a form of spiritual expression. And Saturn kind of like wants to restrict that somehow. And there has been a topic of discussions in some European countries where, related to the visibility of religious symbols or practices in public spaces. So maybe this is not the prayer, but the symbol itself, for example. Maybe we see a major shift in the entertainment industry because Pisces might represent actors, singing. It's kind of like a creative industry, what Pisces can actually represent. And with Uranus being in the picture, we might see a more experimental or unconventional forms of music and performance art. And maybe there is a greater emphasis on artists expressing their individuality and pushing boundaries. So maybe more artists will come out of their own shadow. Pisces is associated with charities and humanitarian efforts as well. So with Uranus's influence, we might see some really innovative approaches to charitable work. Like, think about using technology to connect with people in need, or finding new ways to raise awareness or funds for important causes. Um, or so somehow, obviously, we are talking about the online activities here. And with Pisces representing the vastness of the galaxy and Uranus symbolizes the sky, we actually might see, a lot more space exploration and discovery. So there could be a discovery about distant planets or even a focus on understanding our place in the universe, certain type of discoveries around that. Uranus, to a certain level, does represent curiosity as well. And with Uranus and Uranus's energy of surprise and innovation, maybe we see some discoveries in the sky. Maybe a new planet or even an asteroid could be coming into the picture. And now I did look back if there was any planetary discovery happening in 2021. There was no major planet discoveries in 2021, but there were some interesting findings related to asteroids. For example, scientists discovered a new type of asteroid called the Quasi-Moon, which is actually orbiting the Earth. It's a very small object that follows Earth orbit around the sun, but it's actually not a moon. But they kind of started calling it as a moon. Now, I also kind of like focused on when we had, a positive aspect happening between Saturn and Uranus last, and that was in 2017. And that was also quite an interesting time, marked by a mix of technological innovation and social change as well. So we saw the artificial intelligence and the virtual reality started becoming more important or more mainstream. There were some big social movements happening as well. It was the hashtag Me Too movement that went down in 2017. The reason why I looked at the trine, because trine might have got a similar flavor to sextile. And with Saturn in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus, we might see also the tension between our desire for stability and the need for change when it comes to our environment, because Taurus represents the earth. So maybe new technologies or policies aimed at protecting the earth. But of course, there is a resistance going on with Saturn as well, though. I looked up actually, and scientists have discovered this bacteria that can actually break down plastic. It's still in the early stages. I think it comes from Japan or no, I can't remember that, but there is a very promising solution for cleaning up plastic pollutions in the oceans. And that happened in 2021 during the square of Saturn and Uranus. So we might start seeing some developments, for example, in that particular part, which I think it's really exciting, to be frank. But we might see that we want to somehow restore the marine ecosystems. Also, sorry, the plastic eating bacteria was discovered in at the end of 2016, not in 2021. Sorry about that. And yes, it was in Japan. In the meantime, I looked at my notes. So we might be seeing something exciting about that. And when it comes to Saturn, which represents the structure and the stability, and then Uranus is all about change and innovation. So I would say that surely it's going to be shaking up structures, and unfortunately, this could be actually like it could be a representation of further earthquakes and so forth. Pisces actually can be associated with waste, anything that need to be discarded. So maybe with this Saturn Uranus sextile, we are going to be working out waste management problems, how we deal with waste. And of course, Uranus again represents new technologies for recycling or even creative ways to repurpose discarded materials. This Uranus is really telling us that we have to be thinking outside of the box when it comes to sustainability. Now, going back in the days, I do remember that sustainability has become quite a big topic between 2008 and 2011. And that's exactly when the opposition happened. So this sextile could take this to the next level as well. Now, Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, and Pisces is associated with oil. So we might see some interesting developments in the oil industry as well. Maybe perhaps new technologies for extracting or refining oil, or maybe shifting towards more of a sustainable alternative. I looked at the oil prices. In 2017, the oil industry saw a lot of growth in the US, especially with the shale oil production. There were also big pipeline projects being completed. And by 2021, things had shifted quite a bit because obviously the pandemic had a major impact on demand. So there was a growing focus on renewable energy sources. So I can imagine this being taken further. Now, in 2017, oil prices were actually on the rise. A barrel cost about $50. And there was this big jump from the previous year when I think it was only $34. In 2021, we also saw a very significant increase, with prices averaging over 68 a barrel. So it's hard to say for sure, of course, but oil prices can become quite unpredictable with this aspect as well. So let's see. I think experts are predicting a slight increase in 2025. That's what I read about it. But often with Saturn also what happens is that there could be a demand issue or supply issue happening with that too. So, because Saturn is the planet of limitation and restriction, so something is lacking there, right? And maybe the lack of energy, maybe the lack of natural resources. We might start seeing something like that too. Pisces is also associated with inflation. So with the Saturn-Uranus sextile, we might see some interesting developments in how inflation is managed. Again, maybe new technologies or policies aimed at stabilizing the prices. So kind of like a price, freezing the price type of stuff. Or maybe we are moving towards an alternative economic model. Technology, you might be wondering, technology and inflation, how does that come together? Well, advancement in manufacturing and automation can lead to a lower production costs. So that's how I mean by that. And of course, in the long run, that could be lowering the prices. But of course, technological change can also create new demands as well for certain goods, which is actually can drive up the prices. So it's somehow balancing things out, really. And Taurus is also about values and resources. So in the sign of Taurus, of course, we are talking about the price, the cost of living. So Saturn is trying to knock that down, and Uranus often drives things up. So we might see that there is a work towards the cost of living to kind of having that balanced out. Like, as mentioned earlier, with Saturn in the sign of Pisces, we might see shortages in medical supplies, pharmaceutical matters, or fishes, or, water issues as well, actually. And the other big topic with Saturn in Pisces is the escapism. So, or the other thing that actually came to my mind is something to do with relaxation. There could be a shortage of relaxation, so people cannot rest. Therefore, it does indicate some mental health issues as well. Because spices might be associated with getaways and holidays as well. So even we might see changes in the tourism industry as well. Maybe people are going to be looking for more budget-friendly travel options. And of course, because Taurus is all about money, maybe we are focusing on shorter or closer to home vacations. And to be frank, not a shock. I mean, I wanted to go to Thailand last month and then I canceled it. And one of the reasons I did that is because a normal economy class ticket cost 2,000 euro. And last year I could go for 1,000 euro. So it's double, it's 100% increase. And Uranus is the ruler of airplanes. So, by the way, we can see really wild developments in the travel industry as well, in air travel, especially. Like maybe the electric planes becoming more common, or even new types of aircraft that can take off and land maybe vertically, for example. So, I think it might be an exciting time for aviation as well. What also the airlines are doing, they are kind of like going towards the sustainable aviation. That's a major project there. And also there is research and development into the electric and hybrid electric planes. Also, of course, it's due to the sustainable aviation fuels. And, maybe it's all about because Saturn can represent efficiency as well. So maybe there is this focus on making planes more efficient, maybe with lighter materials, because Pisces is not necessarily heavy. It's heavy emotionally, but not kind of like, you know, from an object point of view. So I can imagine. And also, I looked at petrol as well, because petrol is also ruled by Pisces too. And in 2017, the average price for a gallon of gasoline in the US was 2.42. And then it jumped to 3.01 per gallon. So I think there is a significant growth there within 4 years. So we might see, unfortunately, that gasoline is going to be going up as well. And the reason why, I started thinking, because I looked up where US gets its petrol from, and it's a mix of sources, but there is a lot produced domestically, but also they import from Canada, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. Canada, Mexico, trading, taxes. Wow. So if Canada and Mexico were to stop supplying petrol to the US, it could cause some major disruption, and that's Uranus. And prices would likely skyrocket then. So I'm just kind of like thinking out loud. Now, Saturn does represent the government, and Pisces can symbolize losses. So, if we combine these two, we might see challenges for those in power, maybe medical issues with a politician, for example. Because Uranus is known to shake things up and bring about social changes. When we feel like that our needs are not met, we take that to the street and we demand something. So we can see, unfortunately, social unrest with this also. And by the way, did I give you the degrees where it's taking place? Because as I said, we are going to be having sextiles between these two planets. Now, we're going to be having one on 24 degree this time around. The next one is going to be happening 1 degree Gemini and 1 degree Aries, where Saturn is retrograde. And then the third one is going to be happening on 27 degree of Pisces. Now, the reason why I wanted to mention this to you is because I should not forget that both of them are going to be pretty close to Algol. And, I did a bit of a research. I mean, firstly, Algol is a very powerful fixed star, and its energy is super intense. When it comes together with Uranus, there's a lot of unpredictability, a lot of disruption going on, pretty dramatic events that might be, shaking up the globe, basically. Alcohol is kind of like the head of the fish gets chopped off. So often these two together are about violence. And, I had to be thinking about potentially, such things as assassination attempts. And the last time we had one against Trump, for example, happened in September last year. And interestingly enough, he had one at the end of 2016 as well, when someone tried to grab a police officer's gun at one of his rallies. So during Saturn and Uranus configurations, there were attacks against him. One was in Pennsylvania and the other one was in Florida. And the last time he had an assassination attempt, we had a Uranus and Mars conjunction. Now we've got Mars in sextile to Uranus and in trine to Saturn. So actually, this could indicate another attempt against at least one world leader. I'm just mentioning that too. And of course, when Mars is around Algol as well, it brings a lot more intensity. Mars is the planet of action and aggression. So it does bring a lot higher risk of violence or impulsive behavior. And now Mars is in Cancer, it's emotionally reacting to something. So even though with a sextile, I see this sometimes as a bit of a tension and there is a need for adjustments. Yeah. But anyway, Mars is in Cancer, so often this is about that I just want to protect my own family. So Uranus is breakthrough. And then when it comes together with structure and the discipline of Saturn, then maybe it's all about how you find solutions to your own problems and then to make a progress. And, I would also say that the economy is definitely facing some challenges right now. And the economy is ruled by Taurus. And we are seeing rising inflation and the interest rates, of course, which can put a squeeze on businesses and consumers as well. So, of course, it's not a sure thing just yet that recession is at the corner, but I think from next year onwards, there is a possibility. And again, the last major recession was the Great Recession, which lasted from December 2007 to June 2009. Well, that's when the opposition between Saturn and Uranus also went down. We also had a brief recession in 2020, of course, due to COVID-19, but that was a really brief one. Saturn and Uranus were within orb anyway. As far as I remember, Saturn was in Virgo in 2008, right? I would need to, no, it cannot be in Virgo, actually. It cannot be in Virgo because, yeah, it cannot be in Virgo. So Saturn was, let me just quickly check that where Saturn was. I wanted to check that for you guys. It was in Virgo, actually. Yeah, it was early degrees of Virgo. And Uranus was, of course, in Pisces. So now they pretty much Saturn is taking over the place of Uranus. So the recession could be a topic here, I must say. Okay, but the other thing that was very interesting is that straight after the recession, cryptocurrency were born, or Bitcoin was born, and that was created in 2009. So, therefore, the rise of the cryptocurrency, and often it might be that politicians are thinking that cryptocurrency is the solution for many matters. But with Saturn, we push regulations. So it's the centralization of cryptocurrencies, while Uranus in Taurus says, no, we cannot kind of do that. But again, I'm not a financial expert. I'm just kind of like, using my head a little bit from an astrological perspective. But maybe Bitcoin can reach new record heights in 2025. I would not be shocked about that. Of course, it highly depends on a political decision, but because it's a sextile, maybe a political decision is actually favoring Bitcoin. So let's see how that plays out. I mean, I did look up some political decisions. I don't want to bore you with that, but the recent US president election saw Bitcoin surge as pro-crypto, sentiments grew. South Korea's political events in late 2024 led to a surge in Tron trading as well. So we do know that this is going to be affecting, and this is a sextile. So we make a decision here, which is going to be pushing cryptocurrency or Bitcoin up, or at least that's my opinion about it. And I also know that there, or potentially there might be a lot of talks about regulating crypto more heavily. And of course, that would be because it would bring more stability to the market, I'm guessing, or that would be, or at least making a Bitcoin as a legal tender. So I can imagine that happening as well. But then I started thinking, obviously, if cryptocurrencies become a legal tender, then it leads to some really interesting changes in the world of traditional currencies. So we might see a decrease in their values. So it's an interesting story, but anyway, let's not get into that. And Uranus is also about freedom and breaking free from limitations. So a lot of us will be focusing on escapism in a way, like living somewhere else. And because Saturn is a rigid planet, but in the sign of Pisces, it is learning a little bit to become more flexible, though. So it's kind of like finding structure within the flow, or maybe learning to set boundaries in a way that still allows you to be creative or intuitive. And with Saturn in Pisces, old wounds or patterns could be coming up as well that needs addressing. It's kind of like with Uranus, imagine that it's nudging you, to deal with your past actions because Saturn is like the planet of consequences. But, I love Saturn. It gives a lot of strength and discipline to work through these challenges as well. Uranus kind of like inspires Saturn to go for it because it shows maybe a utopian picture to Saturn where you can be if you work these issues through. So this is often about the fall of the old systems, structures being broken down, and we've got this real push for innovation and change. So I think we're going to be focusing on renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and even new ways of connecting or sharing information with others. And maybe with Taurus is the safety, the safety system or the information is shared in a safe way. So that's how I see pretty much this. What else? Let me just look at my notes because I don't know if I mentioned everything that I wanted to. Yes, of course. Industrial accidents I wanted to mention here as well, or disruptions in manufacturing. So somehow this might be slowing down here with this. And of course, if there is a demand, I cannot, supply whatever is needed due to maybe a breakdown or something like that. And on a social or on an individual level, when it comes to your freedom, and then Saturn is the representation of societal rules. So maybe, often we just need to get out of our comfort zone and shaking off whether others are, going to be judging us or rejecting us. So that could be also an important topic here. And I can imagine the freedom of speech or the censorship on social media platforms that again pops up as a topic, by the way. Because obviously, on one hand, Saturn would like to protect people from harmful matters. But then at the same time, Uranus says everyone has got the right to express themselves freely. So again, it doesn't come with an easy answer, right? And the two planets are extremely opposing anyway. And the regulations around internet and technology. So Saturn is regulation, and Uranus is, of course, technology and internet. So, guys, now let's break it down for the 12 signs. Okay, so let's break it down for all 12 signs. So let's start with Aries rising sign. So you do have got this Saturn Uranus sextile. Um, well, Saturn is first of all in your 12th house when Uranus is in your second house. So this sextile would be about balancing your inner world with your material resources. You might find new ways of earning money that also supports your spiritual growth as well. Maybe it's a discovery of hidden talents that bring financial reward. And it is also a good time to get organized with your finances and find stability within yourself. And Uranus can bring unexpected changes and fluctuations to your income or to your spending habits as well. And then we've got Saturn's influence here, who is trying to create a more stable foundation, encouraging you to be more practical, more disciplined when it comes to managing your resources. But Saturn in the 12th house can bring subconscious fears or anxieties as well. So this is a great opportunity to confront those fears and find practical ways to manage them. You can do such things as journaling or meditation or even a certain type of a therapy. And Saturn in the 12th house can definitely highlight inherited patterns as well, including the financial ones. So maybe we're going to have to be thinking about how we can walk away from this. It might be giving you an opportunity to break free from those old patterns and create new financial reality for yourself. And with Uranus in the second house, often there is this urge to find unconventional ways of earning money. Maybe combining that with Saturn in the 12th house could indicate that maybe you want to be exploring careers connected to holistic healing, spiritual guidance, or, any fears that we can actually kind of like blend with spirituality and practical skills as well. So I think focusing on practical skills and disciplined money management can really be helpful for you this time around. Maybe that Saturn would like you to create a budget, set financial goals, or maybe even to consult with a financial advisor. Now let's move on to Taurus rising sign. So Taurus, this sextile is going to be happening between your 11th and first house. So this would really talk to you about balancing your personal identity with your social circles and your long-term goals as well. You might find yourself drawn to unconventional groups or communities that align with your evolving sense of self. Maybe this is actually a great time for you to do networking, to build connections that is going to be supporting your unique path. And Saturn in the 11th house can actually bring up fears about social connections or putting yourself out there, for example, online. So this sextile is great opportunity to work through those fears, to say goodbye to them, to find this balance between caution and openness in your social interactions. And Saturn, might be able to find a mentor for you in the 11th house, someone who encourages you to step outside of your comfort zone and pursue your goals, potentially with more confidence. So keep an eye out on someone who resonates with your values and can offer you practical guidance. And with Uranus in the first house, you might be drawn to more unconventional style or an edgy style. Maybe you're going to be experimenting a little bit more like with different looks or approaches to life. It is about discovering different or new facets of your identity. But Saturn can bring up insecurities about how others will perceive us. So I think again, this sextile is a great opportunity to find balance expressing your individuality and feeling secure among others. Now let's move on to Gemini rising sign. So for you, Saturn is in the 10th house and Uranus is in your 12th house. So this aspect would talk to you about having to balance your public life and career with your inner world, with your spiritual growth. You might find new unconventional approaches to your career. You might discover your hidden talents, which you can actually enhance in your professional life. So it's definitely a good time for you to bring more authenticity or even personal expression into your public roles. And this transit actually can support even you working diligently behind the scenes. It's about laying the groundwork for future success and recognition. Even though the breakthrough might not be coming immediately, but in the long run, it could pay off. And Uranus in the 12th house can stir up subconscious fears and anxieties as well. So I think this sextile is a great opportunity to explore those feelings and find healthy ways to process them, kind of like even sharing your experiences with others also. And you know what? Uranus is the planet of rejection. I think it's a common fear, especially when Saturn is in the 10th house, that what if the society will not accept something that I created? So surely there is an anxiety here. There is surely the need to build confidence in yourself and in your abilities. Maybe we need to be focusing on the strength and accomplishment rather than on our flaws and weaknesses. And also, this is a reminder that sometimes we're gonna get rejected. We're gonna have to be able to stand up and then go again. Cancer rising sign. So we've got this Saturn Uranus sextile happening in your ninth house and 11th house. So this would talk to you about balancing your beliefs and higher learnings with your social circles and long-term aspirations. Maybe you feel drawn towards unconventional philosophies or discovering spiritual practices, or even you are questioning certain type of belief systems. You are challenging beliefs of others and the beliefs of friends. And with the ninth house, we do need to expand our horizon. And with Uranus, we do need to connect with like-minded people. So it is a connection made to support your intellectual and spiritual goals, or just simply your goals, really. And the ninth house is the house of opportunities as well. So it can bring you opportunities to connect with a community or the creation of community. So whether you want to be a part of a community or you want to create your own, it's completely up to you, but you can use this energy for that. So I think it is telling you to discover your passion and find groups where you can actually share your interests, your values, and your passions. And of course, Saturn in the ninth house can actually represent the lack of beliefs as well. Maybe we cannot believe in friends anymore. Maybe it's difficult for us to believe in a group spirit, sisterhood, brotherhood, and we might want to be detaching ourselves from them. So sometimes, with this Saturn, yeah, we have got issues of trusting friends. But maybe this is also a opportunity for us to work through these trust issues and somehow finding the balance between healthy skepticism and an open-hearted connection with friends. And Saturn is often about rolling up the sleeves, and ninth house is study. So this could even indicate that you might study extremely hard so that you can do your long-term goals, right? And maybe with the Uranus, it's kind of like the cutting edge subjects that you want to be exploring a little bit. So maybe technology, science, social justice matters, even astrology. There is definitely that intellectual curiosity with Uranus in the 11th house. And maybe you have got this gift now to share your unique wisdom with the world because the ninth house is about sharing, it's about publishing. Okay, let's move on to Leo rising sign. So we do have got Saturn in your 8th house and Uranus in your 10th house. So this sextile talks to us about balancing your shared resources and deep transformation with your career and with your public image. So maybe you find like unconventional ways to manage your finances, or maybe you see a sudden shift in your professional life that might be leading you to growth. It is might be potentially an opportunity for you to change job. With the eighth house, we have to embrace the change. We have to be exploring the new opportunities, both within us as well as in the outer world. But because of this eighth house, often there is the topic of fear of change. So because it makes us changes often makes us vulnerable, or it can feel like that I've lost control. So I think this sextile is also giving you the opportunity to explore those fears and again replacing them with a different coping mechanism. So if we need a therapist to work through these underlying traumatic experiences, this aspect is actually inviting you to do that. Maybe this transit affect your career goals and how you use it to build a stronger sense of self-worth. Again, I'm just wondering because the eighth house is other people's money and the 10th house is work. So maybe you are hesitating how much money you should be charging others. And from a career point of view, it could bring you unexpected opportunities as well. And maybe it's a completely different field or a role. And maybe this aligns better with your evolving values and sense of self-worth, but you might be afraid of going towards it though. Saturn in the eighth house can bring up trust issues, especially when it comes to money, shared resources, financial matters, and even intimacy topics as well. So, and then it can impact your career. So, especially if you are collaborating with others or you've got some joint ventures, then maybe this is actually telling us to be a little bit more on the cautious side or being thorough when we are dealing with certain type of financial agreements, such as banks or mortgages, inheritance, and so forth. Saturn in the eighth house can represent delays when it comes to mortgage, inheritance, and so forth. And Saturn is teaching us to be patient about these type of stuff. However, this sextile might bring you unexpected, like, like moving on from it, basically, unexpected opportunities, basically. And then maybe we are able to secure these finances through an unconventional way. And I'm also wondering with Saturn in the eighth house, maybe you feel controlled by your career, especially like by bosses, authority figures, and so forth. And Uranus would like to be a catalyst for a change, pushing you to break free from these limitations, to embrace independence. So maybe it's a sudden job change, a sudden promotion, or even starting your own business. Let's move on to Virgo rising sign. So Virgo, you have got Saturn in the 7th house and Uranus in your 9th house. So I think this sextile is about balancing your partnership and relationships with your beliefs and higher learning. So you might find yourself drawn to partners who challenge your perceptions or encourage you to explore new possibilities, new opportunities, new philosophies. So I think this is inviting you to build relationships based on mutual respect, intellectual stimulation, kind of like getting ideas out of others. And I'm also giving them a peace of mind. And maybe this is about studying about relationship patterns. Maybe you are about to be going out with someone or getting married to someone you would have never imagined. Maybe you've got this cutting edge type of approach to relationships as well. And maybe you want to be studying about relationship topics such as, you know, attachment theory, communication styles, or the psychology of attraction. Because you might have been single for a while, and then now this sextile giving you the opportunity actually to meet someone, maybe in a foreign country. And Saturn in the seventh, coupled with Uranus, can actually represent divorce as well. So Saturn in the seventh indicates challenges or restrictions in partnership. And combined with Uranus, which is the planet of sudden changes and upheavals, it can actually indicate separation or a divorce. But also Saturn is the glue. And often it glues people together through hard times. So this could even indicate whether I feel reassured that the partner is going to be staying with me throughout thick and thin. Uh, you know, a relationship becomes stronger when it is getting like endured. And we need to be able to rely on each other, especially when there are unexpected changes or upheavals in our life. So that's why sometimes Saturn wants us to have a stronger foundation or resilience, or knowing that we are committed to something so that the relationship can remain intact. And with Saturn in the seventh house, you might approach contractual agreements more seriously, or more being more cautious about it. And therefore, it really feels like that it's important to look at the details to ensure that everything is clear and well defined, because Uranus can bring you a sudden opportunity to sign a contract, and you are like, oh, yeah, I want to go for it because it makes you enthusiastic. Now let's move on to Libra rising sign. So, dear Libra, you've got Saturn in the sixth and Uranus in the eighth house. So, this sextile would talk to you about balancing your daily routines and work with shared resources and the deep transformation. So, what does it mean? It means that you might find ways of innovation to organize your work life or work experiences better. Maybe there is a chaotic work environment, and we're going to have to kind of like structure our times better. And maybe there is some unexpected changes in the finances of the workplace that I am in, and maybe it leaves you feel a little bit uncertain or some type of chaotic experiences. But also, if you've got your own business, this is telling you that it's good to like implement new systems or strategies that brings more efficiency to your employees or to your work environment and on a daily basis. With Uranus, we tend to be upgrading something, and the sixth house is the system, so we are upgrading a system here. Now, we might be able to approach this from a medical standpoint as well, and this transit could indicate that you have to pay a closer attention to your health. Anything to do with chronic conditions with Saturn in the sixth. And Uranus might want you to explore alternative or holistic remedies, healings, or just having a more holistic approach to your own wellness. And then you might want to start doing that on a daily basis. But reminder that I'm not a doctor, so you always have to be consulting with a medical professional. You know, Uranus is the representation of like these new trials. So maybe you want to do such thing as well. And this transit even could bring you a transformation in your physical health or daily habits. Maybe you want to be doing, or you want to be making drastic um, lifestyle changes, like a new diet, a new gym, a new exercise routine. So surely self-care, focusing on self-care, on well-being, and creating a healthier, a more balanced environment is one of the topics that pops up here. And also, I would say with Saturn in the sixth house can sometimes create a feeling of being burdened by work, feeling burned out, or feeling burdened by all the daily responsibilities. So, and especially when you don't get recognition or even compensation for it that you think that you deserve. So Uranus in the eighth house might act as a catalyst for change, pushing you to reevaluate your relationship with the work environment, with money, and to establish your own self-worth as well. And Uranus in Taurus is an invitation to step outside of your comfort zone, to get liberated from something. Maybe it's a fear, so that we can make these changes in our lives. Um, Lastly, because what I was also thinking about, that Saturn in the sixth house can represent mental health issues as well. And Uranus in the eighth house can represent traumatic experiences. So I'm just wondering with this combination that you might need to be processing the past traumatic experiences that are impacting you on a daily basis, which is impacting your own well-being. But Pisces is a gentle sign, so it just tells us that sometimes we have to rest, we have to um, be gentle with ourselves. We need to be even to be able to ask for support if needed. Let's move on to Scorpio rising sign. So we've got Saturn in your fifth house and Uranus is in your seventh. So this sextile is about a balance to your creative expression and romance with your partnership and relationships. So maybe you are finding new ways of expressing yourself creatively in your relationships, but through having some unexpected shifts in your romantic life. And that leads to a potential growth. Maybe this is telling you to explore what you are passionate about and kind of like wanting you to build relationships based on uh, fairness, equality, mutual respect, and authenticity as well. Of course, the fifth house is also something to do with intimacy and sexuality as well. So maybe this is about spicing up our sex life, exploring new and unconventional ways of expressing ourselves sexually, different forms of intimacy. You are more open about exploring your own desires as well. Maybe you are more about like communicating about your needs and boundaries, or you are more clear about what you need so that that relationship leads to more fulfilling type of stuff. The fifth house rules children. So this transit potentially could indicate a surprise pregnancy as well, a miracle baby, for example. Let's move on to Sagittarius rising sign. So Sagittarius, for you, we've got Saturn in the fourth house and Uranus in the sixth house. So this could talk to you about somehow balancing your home and family life with your daily routines and work. So what does it mean? Imagine that you become the caretaker of a parent, and then how much time I spend at home and how much time I spend within the home environment. Like you know, my parents' home, basically. But also, this is about finding new ways of creating stability and structure in your home environment. Or you might experience an unexpected change in your work that is actually leading to an unsettled feeling in the home as well. Maybe this is about the implementation of new systems or strategies which actually brings you an inner peace or a harmony, not only within yourself, but in your outer world as well. Maybe from a property standpoint, This transit can indicate, let's say, a desire to renovate or remodel your home, or you might feel inspired to make changes in your home environment, something which is a little bit more comfortable, tasteful. Maybe it's some unconventional design plans. Maybe you want to be creating like a little bit of a work desk in your home environment. But Saturn in the fourth house can indicate the feeling of being burdened by family responsibilities and obligations as well, or feeling restricted by your home environment. So especially this is the case when you feel that your needs and desires are not being met or even overlooked by people that you live together with or you share the roof with. And of course, the sixth house is there, so it does bring up the topic of health issues. And Saturn in the fourth house can indicate health concerns related to a person that we care about. With Saturn, typically it's an older person. So maybe you're going to have to be taking on the role of a caregiver, um, helping someone through their own challenges. Let's move on to Capricorn rising sign. So Saturn is in your third house and Uranus is in your fifth house. So this is about balancing your communication and learning with creative expression and romance as well. So maybe you are finding yourself expressing, like you find yourself or you find unconventional ways of expressing yourself creatively, your authenticity. Maybe there is a sudden change happening in your romantic life, which is going to get you more serious. So there is, and therefore it leads to personal growth. And maybe that personal growth is that it's easier for you to start talking about your own feelings. I think it's a great time for you to start expressing your passion and maybe even building connections based on something that is truly pulling your heartstring. And maybe this transit also helps you to explore your creative writing skills. You might feel prone to start a new short-term project, such as writing a series of blog posts or short stories, or even you might be thinking about putting yourself out there on a stage. And maybe if you are a writer, it's kind of like exploring different styles of writing. It's kind of like finding your own like authentic voice. And with Saturn in the third house, you might find challenging to speak up or to express your needs, let's say with your romantic partner or with children. So maybe this is telling you that it's time to consider your own needs as well before you just consider all the time the needs of my children, because you need certain type of fun in your life as well. And maybe this is also an indication that you are focusing on your children's education or on their intellectual development. So you might be helping them with their studies, or you are exploring new schools, new learning opportunities together with them. And I'm also wondering that maybe with the Saturn in the third house, you might be overthinking or get stuck in rigid thought patterns. So maybe this is telling you that it's time to kind of find the balance between that flexibility and the structured way of thinking also. And maybe this transit can also bring you the desire to um, let's say, try out how it would play, like how it would be if I went on a dating website, for example. Maybe this is giving you an idea about experimenting with different forms of art or innovative, like technology related art as well. Why not? Let's move on to Aquarius rising sign. So Saturn is in your second house and Uranus is in your fourth. So it is about balance your personal values and resources with your home and family life. So maybe you are about to find new ways of generating income or new ways of managing your finances. Maybe there are some unexpected changes in your living circumstances, which is going to cost you money, such as relocation, a new rental agreement, and so forth. But also, definitely, it is telling you that it's time to explore your relationship with money and to create a more stable or secure foundation in your finances. Maybe with Uranus in the fourth house, maybe there is this sudden opportunity to generate income through homes. So you sell a home, you buy a home, you might be just renting out a room, or maybe you even start a home-based business because Uranus in Taurus is often quite creative, though. Somehow you are trying to kind of like monetize your living space. Even it could indicate that you are trying to reduce your living space because maybe it's too big. And maybe also this together can indicate of relocation because of work. And obviously, that would bring you a significant change in your living circumstances. So, a new city, a new country, or simply you are about to start working remotely. And with Saturn in the second house, you might have been working on building your self-confidence and maybe figuring out what your talents are. It's kind of like how I feel. Oh, do I feel well in my own skin? So I think Uranus is really trying to figure out your unique talents. And last but not least, let's move on to Pisces rising sign. So you've got Saturn in your first house while Uranus is in the third. So that would talk to you about balancing your personal identity and self-expression with your learning and communication. It looks like you have got a lot to learn about yourself. You might find new, unconventional ways to express yourself authentically. Maybe there is an unexpected shift in your way of thinking, in your communication style, and then it leads to certain type of a growth. Maybe you are approaching your own online business from a different perspective as well. Maybe there is a new way of how you want to share your ideas with others. I do have a Pisces rising sign, and actually, I'm coming up with a score system, a point system, so that, let's say you bought or you are about to buy 5 webinars, so you can get the 6 free of charge. I'm working on a point system like that when it comes to my website. So currently it is under maintenance at the moment. But Saturn in the first house can sometimes create like the feeling of restriction or feeling limited, especially when it comes to your physical appearance. So maybe you are a lot more self-conscious about how you look like, your appearance, and maybe you want to, and Uranus tells you that there is nothing wrong with you. Let's embrace the unique look of yours to kind of run away from those limitations. And Pisces is definitely about self-acceptance anyway. And because we are focusing on that self-appearance, with Uranus, we find new ways of making it happen. So weight loss could be a topic for you. But often Saturn is telling you that doing that in a healthy and sustainable way is very important because often Uranus is kind of like really getting excited about these type of stuff. So I think that's what we wanted to kind of like discover for today. Don't forget to listen to the very beginning of the video because that might be helping you understanding this complex transits in a lot more in depth, basically. Have a lovely week, everyone. See you soon.